that he took, in his opinion, were two bad deals, one a bad treaty, the other one a bad agreement, and got rid of them. And he said, I'm ready to have better agreements, better treaties. Could be naive, but that's his approach. So I don't think he's married to the past. I don't think the Israelis have the hold that they think they might have over Donald Trump. Donald Trump has positioned himself to be surrounded by some very pro-Israeli people, and his rhetoric has been very pro-Israel. And he will promote, Israeli interests to a point. But I don't think Donald Trump surrenders American interests to Israel. And I think it would be a very, very bad mistake for the Netanyahu government to conspire behind the back of Donald Trump or try to, upset anything that he personally was involved in. I think if Donald Trump became personally involved in resolving this Iran thing, that he would put Netanyahu, whoever the prime minister is, on notice that we'll talk to you, we'll let you air your things privately, but you don't get to have a vote on this one. This is an American thing. We're doing it, and I think the Israelis would be wise to agree with that, because look, they're finally in the position that they want to be in, Israel, because of the collapse of Assad. They are in the position of solidifying greater Israel, and they have a president who's come in who appears to be willing to let them do this. But one of the things that they're worried about is Iran's nuclear program, and so they need to let Trump resolve that nuclear program, and that's what Trump is seeking to do. He's seeking to eliminate that nuclear program one way or another. But the best way is through diplomacy. So the Israelis, I do think, on this one, they're not going to try and sabotage, because strategically they're getting exactly what they want. Iran's position in the region, vis-a-vis the axis of resistance, has been significantly damaged by the fall of Assad. Now Hezbollah in Lebanon is isolated, and I think that the Hezbollah as a threat to Israel is going to be managed, both politically and militarily, through domestic political imperatives within Lebanon. This weakens Iran, because the key thing about Iran was, if Israel wanted to have a fight with Iran always had that loaded weapon of Hezbollah up against the Israeli head. They could say, yeah, but boom, we're going to shoot you. That loaded pistol has been disarmed. It's in the process of being disarmed. And without that, Iran has lost all advantages. And because now, Iran will have to fire missiles that lead to a nuclear retaliation and involvement of the United States. This is not the direction Iran wanted to go. Iran always wanted to be more coercive with Israel, pressure them, do the axis of resistance to contain the Sunni shield that Israel was seeking to build through the Abrams Accords. But that it looks like that's the loss of Syria is well, not fatal to the axis of resistance. It does serious harm to it right now, and it puts Israel in the driver's seat. And I think Israel's happy to be in that position. And I think at this point in time, they would be satisfied with denuclearizing Iran as opposed to regime change.
We had the participation of the Russian government in JCPOA between Iran and the United States. They were on the sideline, but they were trying to facilitate the situation with the agreement. Right now, with the situation that we're witnessing between the United States and Russia, do you think that Russians would be part of this, or it's going to be just about the United States and Iran?
I mean, ultimately, it's going to be about the United States and Iran. The deal has to satisfy the United States. Trump is not Obama, and Trump isn't going to yield the floor to, international interference in his strategic vision. But Iran is, they have a strategic relationship with Russia. But I think Trump's going to play to that, because the key aspect of the strategitic relation is this, north-south economic corridor coming down from St. Petersburg, down into Chabahar, I guess, or Bandar Abbas. For that to thrive, you need sanctions lifted on both countries, and and that's what Trump will be offering through his Ukraine deal and through this deal. So I think Russia will be involved, but it will be done again peripherally. I think the core issue of resolving the Iranian nuclear threat will be to definitions before the United States influenced by Israel, not any other players. But I do think that ultimately what's put in place will be a version of the JCPOA with extensive inspections by the IAEA using additional protocols, et cetera, and that'll be part of the AEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. Functions. It's not going to be American inspectors coming in. It's going to be IAEA inspectors coming in. And but who knows? Trump may insist on an American inspection presence in the IAEA, something that previously wasn't permitted. I don't think Iran is in the strongest of positions right now, and I do think that if you press Iran intelligently, you get, because look, Trump, and I was talking to the Iranian president, I'd say, look, you got to understand, we're overcoming interest in this. You have the same problem with us. I get it, but I'm trying to tell you that the only way a treaty works here, because we're going to be talking about a treaty, not an agreement. I got to take it to the Senate and get ratification. In order for me to get ratification, they have to trust the IAEA. Right now, they don't. They just don't trust them. That means that we're going to have an American presence there. Now, we will agree that the Americans on the IAEA operate in accordance with whatever the bounds are here, but we have to have American eyes on target. That's just a requirement. And I'm sorry, but that's a deal breaker for me. And if he does it right, the Iranian president might be able to. There's ways to get it done. For instance, Trump could organize a confidence-building visit by American specialists to introduce the American specialists to the Iranians, who then take them to the various places that will be showing them this place. And now Americans are physically present there. They see names and those guys come back as IAEA inspectors. There's things that can be done to facilitate confidence building in this. That doesn't make this harsh imposition of a term, but I think there's going to have to be in order for this to become a treaty that the United States Senate can ratify. There are going to have to be some American aspects to the monitoring and verification of this agreement, because not the United States nor Israel do accept an IAEA only monitoring regime. But that was all that we'll get in 2015 because we didn't have the strong hand right now. We actually have a very strong hand with the collapse of Syria, and so if we play it right, and not try to go for the kill, if we just play this right and smart, I think we can get to where we need to be, and that's in the best interest of both the United States and Iran.
This is the problem. I don't think that Iran would agree on that. to have.
I think they would actually. I think they would, because they have no other choice. You can say no, but they would. I'll tell you. You can say no. I'll tell you. When UN inspectors got kicked out in 1998, the Iraqis said no UN inspectors and definitely no American inspectors. I went back to Iraq. See, I happen to know a little bit what I'm talking about when it comes to diplomacy, and I had discussions at the highest levels. The Vice President of Iraq, Yassin Ramadan, with Tariq Aziz, with the foreign minister, with all the nuclear people, all the weapons people. And I said, you have to let UN inspectors back in, and there has to be an American presence. And they agreed, because that had to be done. I'm telling you right now, if it's handled right, the Iranians will be told, you have no choice. There is no choice in the matter. So let's do this diplomatically. Let's make sure it's something that doesn't threaten you. But the idea that the Iranians are going to go no, then their cities disappear. That's where we're at right now. This isn't Barack Obama. This is Donald Trump. He has a nuclear war plan ready. This is what it told the Iraqis. This is George W. Bush, not Bill Clinton. He wants to invade your country and wipe you off and kill all of you. I told Taha Yassin Ramadan, the vice president, who had a pistol on his hip that was worn because he shoots people with it. In a one-on-one meeting, I looked in the eyes when he told me no, and I said, then I'm looking at a dead man. This is American, telling the Iraqi vice president that I'm looking at a dead man if he doesn't do this. I thought he was going to shoot me on the spot. But he paused. He asked the interpreter to make sure what I said was right. They said, okay, tell me again why I have to do this. And then we went through it, and we talked through it. If this is done right, it's not a deal breaker at all. Not a deal breaker at all. America's a reality that Iran has to live with. And if you want to have good economic relations, if you want the lifting of sanctions, this death to America crap has to stop. Okay? It has to stop. I know it's emotional. They're not really trying to kill America, but it has to stop. You have to say, no more death to America. If you want to do business with me, I'm not sending my businessmen over to your country if there's death to America. Cease and desist. What we need to start talking about is how do we peacefully coexist with one another. I don't expect you to say love America. There's a long way to go before we fall in love. But death to America, no, that's done. And that means that American inspectors will be on the ground in Iraqi nuclear facilities, because there's no other way for this to become a treaty. And if it doesn't become a treaty, I'm looking at a dead man. That's what you tell the Iranian president. You're dead. Not because I want you dead, but that's just the inevitable outcome of the conflict that's about to happen. I'm trying to stop that conflict. So work with me. This is where we're at right now, Noam. It's not a joke anymore. That's it. Did you see Trump? He said, would you preemptively attack and all? He's not answering that quick because he knows what he's going to do. He knows what's going to happen. He made a decision. So, it is what it is, man.
Yeah. But after all, I don't see the Iranian government accepting that. This is
Why? Why? Why do you say that?
Because they don't want Americans on.
They have no choice.
Yeah,
they have no choice. They know this. Don't you see the president? What he's saying? He's upset about True Promise 2. He didn't want to do it. They were working with the European Union to get sanctions lifted. Then they hit it, and that's it. He's pissed. He's pissed. He knows what needs to be done, and so does the Supreme Leader. The Supreme Leader didn't know what needed to be done. That president wouldn't be allowed to talk the way he talks. The Supreme Leader knows what needs to be done. And so, yeah, no. You start off with the premise that this can't be an agreement. It has to be a treaty. And first of all, from the Iranian perspective, they want it because they don't want an agreement to just be wiped off. You start off that, you ready? Do you really want a treaty? How bad do you want a treaty? Because the only way you get a treaty is that it's ratified by the United States Senate. And the only way it's going to get ratified by the United States Senate, there's an American president around with the IAEA inspectors. And that's just a reality Iran will have to deal with. They're really
that would work with Iran. With IAEA and the people from IAEA, they can do this. But
Americans are part of the IAEA.
Yeah, Americans can be part of that. They cannot do it separately.
No, it didn't separately. What I said is Americans will be present with the IAEA inspection teams. Yes, but I do think that the way you get it in is you have American tours of these facilities prior to it. Not inspectors, but you bring Americans in to do the confidence building work, to say, hi, I'm Scott Ritter. I'm a new guy. Yeah, I'm going to probably be one of the inspectors that comes in. How you doing? Yeah, what do you got here? Let's talk about it. What are you worried about? Parameters, the confidence building measures. Again, not imposed, but then back the next time they come, they got their IAEA passports, and the Iranians go, oh, Mr. Ritter, I met you already. How you doing? I'm doing good, thanks. How's your family? Great. Yeah, I remember when you took me out to dinner in Isfahan, beautiful place. Boom, let's get on. And now you talk about doing the work. But there has to be American eyes on target, or else the United States Senate is not going to go for it. That's reality. They're not going to learn to live with. I'm not talking about American inspection process. I'm about when Iraq tried to impose no Americans on their team, we couldn't allow that. Americans had to be there. Now, by delinking American policy, by delinking the nuclear program from saying, meaning sanctions are lifted, there's no regime change, then there's not so much nefarious activity. If you keep sanctions, keep regime change, and now you're trying to bring Americans on, that's a recipe for disaster, because we did that. And the CIA takes over and go regime change all the time. But if you make it so this is purely technical verification of a treaty, and the treaty is, write it out so it's very specific about what what the requirements are, and all you're doing is when that was by the treaty. I think this is doable, and in the process, there's no nuclear war, and you begin a process of regional stability, because Syria is going to be Iran doesn't need to be at war with America, in the aftermath of Syria. I think there's a window of opportunity here if Donald Trump does it the right way. He's the right people in to talk to.
Do you think that, Scott, getting to the complaints, in your opinion, when you look at the people who are so happy with the situation, what is their understanding in your opinion? Because it seems that the fall of Assad regime is in their mind some sort of, they can facilitate the process of defeating Israel, which is, in my opinion, it's totally the opposite, because Assad was helping the axis of resistance, and he was part of the axis of resistance. And right now, Assad is gone. Everybody's trying to smear Assad and saying something about him. But we have to be honest about Assad and his role in the axis of resistance. How is, now, do you want to take care of that?
I think it's somebody walking a dog, so I can't really take care of it. I can't go out and shoot a neighbor with the dog. So we just have to tolerate the fact that the dog walked by my house. Sorry.
Do you understand, Scott, what's happening in the mind of these people who are happy with the situation in Syria? Because, as you mentioned, these people right now in charge, these were part of ISIS, and how we can see any sort of change coming from these people?
Well, I just spent the weekend. I was invited down to Tampa, Florida, by a group of people who are, I would say, they're very much anti-Assad crowd. And one of the reasons why they brought me down is they were concerned. I mean, I've gone down there before. I met with them before. We talked primarily in the context of Palestine and trying to support the concept of a free Palestine and oppose the Israeli genocide. And we got along great on that one. But now we bring in the fall of Assad, and I have taken a very hardline position on this, that this is bad for Palestine. This is fatal for Palestine. But they took umbrage at the tone and tenor and even content of much of what I was saying about this. But because we're not unfriendly, I was invited down, and I had some very pleasant and informative meetings with them. And they did their best to educate me on where they're coming from. And they did. I know exactly where they're coming from. They view Bashar al-Assad's regime as a continuation of a nightmare for the man with his father, Hafez al-Assad. Many of these people, define the Assad tyranny through the Hama massacre in 1982. Depending on numbers, up to 40,000 people could have been killed, 20 to 40,000, hundreds of thousands displaced. And it led to ongoing oppression by the Assad regime, and that's both Hafez and his son Bashar, against anybody who was affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was supposed to be eradicated, but there's always cells, and so in trying to hunt down the cells, people were arrested without due process, imprisoned, and it's not known for its appreciation of human rights. Torture, murder took place, and so these people view Bashar al-Assad as a continuation of father and as an evil man. They use that term over and over again. This was an evil regime, and I'm not here to dispute their interpretation of that. I imagine that if I were a Syrian citizen and my family members were being rounded up and imprisoned and tortured and murdered, that I would view Bashar al-Assad as an evil man. I didn't ask the question, though, because I didn't want to be rude, but why were your relatives arrested? Were they truly innocent? Or was somebody in your family maybe doing something with the Muslim Brotherhood? Now, that doesn't justify being arrested and tortured, but it changes the concept of arbitrariness. There's no doubt that the Ba'athist regime that governed Syria was in violent opposition to forces that didn't want the Ba'athist regime to be in there. There's also no doubt that the security forces of the Ba'athist regime tended to be recruited amongst the Alawite population, a minority Shia-based sect that Bashar al-Assad comes from. And that if you were Sunni Muslim, and especially a Sunni Muslim that has roots with the Muslim Brotherhood, you could find yourself on the receiving end. But so what we're dealing here now isn't about arbitrary evilness. We're talking about an existential struggle between secularism, which, as they said, isn't true secularism. It's not about everybody's equal. It's about the Alawites dominating everybody else. Their interpretation. I would say that maybe Christians might have a different interpretation. The ancient Christian community of Syria might have felt that they're very much at home with the secular government of Bashar al-Assad. And I would imagine that those Sunni that had no connectivity with the Muslim Brotherhood probably all right too. But again, you can't argue this in personal history. And doubt my mind that there are many people, including people that I met, who sincerely believe that Bashar al-Assad is evil. But it doesn't change where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is that if you're going to say you support Palestine and say you support the creation of a Palestinian state, understand that as things speak, the current Palestinian leadership, finally the Palestinian Authority, and backed up by Fatah, a Palestinian political party, has totally sold out to Israel and the United States, 100%. Abu Mazen, Mohammed Abbas, is an Israeli. Fatah has become an Israeli-controlled political party that is not. With them in charge, what we saw was the Abraham Accords, which led to the isolation of Palestine, trapped to a map which allowed Israel to continue the parceling up and taking over the West Bank community, and the Palestinians would just be acquiescent to this because they already sold out. So there's not going to be a Palestinian state with Fatah and Abu Mazen. Not going to happen. Just the opposite: the eradication of Palestine as an independent state concept. Hamas, which by the way is affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood, began a conflict on October 7, 2023, that created for the first time ever the possibility of at least a pathway to the creation of a Palestinian state, whether it be a two-state solution or a one-state solution, depends on how far it was able to progress. But the world started to recognize the need and desirability of a Palestinian state. You saw nations start to speak out, and you started to see Israel held to account for its genocidal behavior, the isolation of Israel on the global stage, the promotion of a Palestinian state. All of that is taking place because of what Hamas did on October 7th. And that can only be facilitated by the support provided by the axis of resistance. The war of escalated violence, the war of attrition waged between Hezbollah and Israel, Iran's ability to intervene decisively if necessary, and Syria's role in facilitating the land bridge so that Hezbollah could be resupplied by Iran and continue to exist as this loaded pistol against Israel's head. That was it. That was the only pathway to Palestinian state. So if you're someone who says, I believe in a Palestinian state now, and you're somebody out there saying that the sacrifice of so many innocent Palestinians in Gaza, in order to have any meaning, has to lead to the creation of a Palestinian state. If that's what you're saying, and there's everybody out there saying that, including many of the people that I met with in Tampa, so yeah, we're with that. You can't cheer the fall of Bashar al-Assad because the two can't exist on the same page. It's impossible. You can't say, yes, I'm glad Assad is gone, but I support a free Palestine that's linked to the actions of Hamas on October 7th. Because when Syria gone, the land bridge is blocked. Hezbollah now is isolated. Hezbollah is probably on the path of becoming irrelevant. You're going to see pressure put on its military now that it can't be resupplied to turn itself over to fall under the control of the Lebanese armed forces. And Hezbollah, now delinked from its resistance function, becomes a political party that eventually, because of politics, will become diminished. You already have a Shia counterpart, the Amal party in Lebanon. And Amal is diminished because of Hezbollah's resistance factor. But if you eliminate the resistance factor, now Amal and Hezbollah have to fight amongst the same population. You're going to see the politics of divide and conquer carried out by the Maronite Christians and the Sunnis that will continue to try to split Hezbollah from Amal, diminish the political influence of the Lebanese Shia. That's the direction Lebanon's heading in right now because of the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Now, people say, oh, no. The IRGC says they have alternative lines of communication, or no, they don't. I mean, they might have the ability to smuggle in this, that, and the other thing, but they don't have the ability to load up missiles on a truck and truck them across Syria and deposit them in Lebanon. That just doesn't exist. What about the maritime? I don't think the Iranians control the Mediterranean Sea. I think Israel and the United States control the Mediterranean Sea, and I think without access to Syrian ports, it's just absurd to talk about maritime resupply, and air isn't going to happen either. Israel will shoot down anything that tries to fly in. So the isolation of Hezbollah is real right now, and left unreversed, the situation in Syria is such that Iran no longer has connectivity with Hezbollah, meaningful connectivity. Iran itself has gone through an interesting transition. When this conflict began, Iran was led by President Raisi, who was, I think, of one mind with the IRGC about the role played by the Axis of Resistance in supporting Hamas. But when Raisi died and he's replaced the current president doesn't seem to be of that mind. As we already said, he was against the missile retaliation Operation True Promise 2, the bombardment of Israel by RRG